let's talk about people that might not be in a job next year in the NFL. 3 coaches that are on the hottest of hot seats that we think are going to be out of a gig by the end of the season. Ron Rivera, of course, the latest casualty, thrown out mid-season, which is always quite a harsh thing, I think. And Tepper, the Panthers owner, said it's so we can take advantage of the situation in our competitors and look at his background, a hedge fund guy, of course. He's always looking at the angles and he thinks, well, we know we're going to do this. We might as well do this now so we can have an edge on other teams that could be looking for a new head coach. And
I think that's quite smart. Ron's been there a long time. He's been very successful. Obviously they lost Cam early on in the season, so that hasn't really helped them. Kyle Allen's been a bit hit and miss. Right. Like, you've got McCaffrey, who is, when he came to the NFL, I was like, is this guy going to be legit? And he is phenomenal. It's amazing to watch what that guy can do. And with Ron, actually, I can see what the owner's doing. When you watch the All or Nothing show, you got a sense of him as a person. He wants to be embedded in the team as an owner. He doesn't just want to be an owner telling people what to do. Yeah. So I'm sure this didn't come as a kind of rash decision. He's kind of probably thought about this quite hard. And
it's a couple of years, isn't it? So he sat and watched, and he said, I wanted to make my mind up. And there was a lot of discussion this was going to happen. And there's been a lot of discussion of other coaches for quite a lot of the season, either because they've seemingly come to the end of the road, like Dan Quinn in Atlanta just seems to have disappointingly, when you consider they were that close to winning a Super Bowl a few years back, seems to have come to the end.
Then you look at all the talent he's lost as well. That's the thing. And I suppose they've never got over that loss at the Super Bowl.
No, I don't think they have. I don't think
they have. They were one play away from the game being done, and then all of a sudden it just flipped on its head, and the Patriots just went wild. And I don't know how you come back from that because it was there for the taking.
I was at the game, and I still, 3-4 years on, whatever it is, can't believe what I saw. I can't believe what I saw. It's happened to some degree with the Eagles as well. Doug Peterson, kind of outside rumblings that he might be gone, but probably he'll get at least another year. But the changing coaching personnel as a result of their Super Bowl success has had an effect. So there are a number of coaches bubbling under. Matt Patricia, we talked about on the show quite recently, could be done after 2 seasons in Detroit. But there seem to be 3 or 4 that are leading the field, if that's not a complete contradiction in terms, to be out of a job. So our top 3, number 3, Doug Marrone, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Marrone has had opportunity. We talk about the Atlanta Falcons coming that close to the Super Bowl. It was only a couple of years ago that they were that close to getting to the Super Bowl, of course, in the AFC Championship game. And for a long time, the criticism was on the shoulders of Blake Bortles, right? Or the fault was at the feet of Blake Bortles. He wasn't good enough. The defense he was holding them back. They invested heavily in him. That was the wrong move. And it feels like they've missed that window now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Marrone is going to be a casualty as a result of that.
And I think that's the thing, you miss your window. And you've got to wait another 5 to 10 years potentially till that comes around again.
Right.
And I think it is time to change for them. They got close. It hasn't gone well for the last couple of years. It's probably time for a change. It's a good time to change now.
I think with Marrone and the Jags, it's difficult because of the Tom Coughlin aspect. So Coughlin in there, in an upstairs role, here's a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls, was by all accounts an authoritarian, no-nonsense head coach. And whatever he says about, it's not my team, it's Doug's, I'm just here to guide, I'm just here to be involved. You've got the spectre of this, one of the most successful coaches in the history of the NFL, looming over you. That's got to play on your mind.
And that's probably really tough as a coach when you haven't won anything.
Right.
You've got someone, as you said, sitting above you who has achieved those things, or those rings with the Giants. And
every meeting he has, he's wearing his rings.
Exactly. And you can't avoid that. And that must eat away at you internally.
So Doug Marrone is our number 3. Number 2, Pat Shurmur at the New York Giants. I think his time has come as well. It's partly, I think he is the victim of that media market in particular. A really underwhelming season. I don't think that surprised many people. We joke about the fact I thought the Giants might be a sleeper pick, at least to be more competitive. And I think that there are a number of reasons why they haven't been. Not least Saquon Barkley has been a shadow of the player he was last year.
And that's the thing. Everybody, he is a phenomenal talent,
right?
But I don't think he's had the opportunity this year to really showcase, his skills that he was able to last year. And the problem is,
a little bit banged up maybe, and also because he is the focal point of that offense, when it's so one-dimensional.
Odell Beckham's gone, so that kind of threat's gone, so then it just goes on to him, and everybody knows where it's going, basically. And that's part of the problem. And then you've got a young quarterback that's come in. Eli Manning's still hanging around.
Right, exactly.
You know, and it's the same sort of thing at the Jags. You're talking about the coaches. You've got that. You know, you've got a quarterback who's playing number 2 now, sitting on the side, who's won 2 Super Bowl rings.
Polishing those as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that must be really difficult.
I think with Jones's start as well, Mark. So I think because he started so well, everyone got a little bit carried away in the New York media market. Oh, he's the future, he's now. And actually, like any rookie quarterback, so it's not a knock on him.
No.
His first season is peaks and troughs and indifference.
And that's what happens. Like, everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon. This is the next superstar. And then all of a sudden, a couple of bad games. And confidence is a big thing when you're a young athlete because you're trying to make your mark. You're trying to establish yourself. And the way you do that is by being consistent and confident with your ability. Once things start to go bad, it's a really tough position, I think, to get yourself out of because you're looking around for someone to help you and people are looking at you to be the leader. And who do you go to? And I think as a young quarterback, that's probably really tough being in that environment, especially in New York, you know, where the media is going to be on top of you 24/7.
It is an attractive gig, though. You know, the Giants, there are going to be some interesting names in the mix, including the number 1 on our list right now, who is surely a lock to go, unless somehow, I mean, the only exception here, I think, is if they make it to the Super Bowl, which, based on what we saw last night, is not going to happen, although they are still improbably in the playoff hunt. The Dallas Cowboys and Jason Garrett. You look at the comments that Jerry Jones increasingly now has been making in terms of severity. So earlier on in the week, yeah, I'm sure Jason Garrett's going to be coaching in the NFL next season. Okay, I think we're pretty clear that he's gone. But I suppose he can save his gig if the Cowboys, which they're not going to do, but if they did.
I think it's going to be really interesting there because you've got, obviously, they're still top of the division, which is a terrible division. It shouldn't have in a place of
Worst
making
in football?
Oh, it's appalling, isn't it? You know, if you can go, you know, they're 6 and 7 now and they're leading the division. That is pretty poor, and also with the talent they've got, where they are, and it's really interesting when you talk to or you listen to Cowboys fans. They don't even want him as head coach.
Yeah, sure.
They'd rather not make the playoffs to get rid of him to start, and that's not a good environment to be in. And also, he's been there quite a long time. I think they've had their window as well, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be a while before they get back. You know, probably 2 seasons ago, they were flying high. It looked really exciting for them. And I think they're another team that has actually lost their window.
Jerry Jones, I guess, would beg to differ. And he made a comment, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, made a comment after the game last night against the Bears that, you know, tired of losing, and there's no doubt that the players are there. So again, it's kind of joining the dots here. And you look at the talent on both sides of the ball, right? But, you know, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, Gallup stepping up.
You've got your trio there. And once you've got those 3 weapons like that, normally that's a good starting point for your team to buy into.
Yeah.
And
in that, as you say, in that division, which is so vanilla compared to virtually every other division in the NFL, compared to the West, right? It's like diametric opposite.
But it's amazing how it goes up peaks and troughs, isn't it? Right. Like 1 year that could be a really tough division, and it swings to the other. Like the West is obviously back up there now. You've got 3 teams that could potentially make it. You know, whether Rams can actually turn over the Seahawks this weekend, we'll probably get into that later, but that'd be quite interesting. But I do think that, you know, he's had his time at the Cowboys. If they do make the playoffs, they are going to get absolutely pumped. Like, there's no way they're going to go anywhere.
That's quite, for whoever doesn't win the NFC West, that's quite
they're going to go to Dallas and destroy them, basically.
Because the 5th seed will play, you know, because they'll be the 4th seed, of course. Whoever wins the East will be the 4th seed, right? That's a pretty tasty wild card.
But that could be a division where you see 2 coaches get fired.
Yeah.
And that could be quite an interesting one.
Right.
You know.
And Jason Garrett could end up in New York, of course. There's some rumblings of that.
But it's always interesting. I always find this, like, the musical chairs of coaches really interesting. And it's in every sport. You see them, they fail. I know it can be the environment, it can be the owner, it can be so many different factors, but then they're going to get a job somewhere else. And you know the pattern of the way that individual works. And sometimes I think, you know, is that panic station we need someone in? And I think this is where the Panthers have probably done a good thing. They've got time to evaluate who they're going to bring in rather than get to the end of the season and be a massive panic for a new head coach.
Hope you enjoyed the Nat Coombs Show presented by Paddy Power Fantasy. There's plenty more where that came from. Just click subscribe to ESPN UK and you won't miss a trick.